So thank you for being here. The heart and soul of this is actually going to be our panelists and not me, as introduced. But let's see a little bit about who's in the audience. So how many of you are founders of an organization? Okay, there you go. Don't be shy. How many of you sit on a board, corporate or nonprofit? Oh, many more hands, okay. How many of you are corporate execs in one way or another? Whoa, even more. Okay, what have I missed here? Public sector. Anybody working in the public sector? Okay, you have a lot to learn. There you go. There you go. Any nonprofit execs? Yes, thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk across all of these sectors and all of your experience to date and what might lie ahead for you. So now that you've shared a little with us, let me tell you first about myself before I introduce our panelists. So as Tenny said, my name is Nora Silver. Haas is my encore career. I came here after founding 3 different social enterprises in the world. Have any of you heard of AmeriCorps?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I was in charge of training and technical assistance to AmeriCorps, which is a volunteer opportunity, right, for a number of years. And I got really, really hooked on, with a little knowledge, how much young people could go and make a change in the world. And that's basically what brought me to Haas. Okay. When I came here, I was hired by the dean because of student energy and social impact. And the dean said to me, do something. So with that direction, over the last almost 20 years, I'm telling you what we offer because you can plug into these things. We offer 20 different courses, and alumni can audit them. Kevin in the back is our person who helps you do that. Okay? We have signature programs. Social Sector Solutions consults with nonprofits and social enterprises in student teams, our partnership with McKinsey. We have philanthropy fellows where we place just graduating students working in philanthropy, giving away money. We have a new Impact CFO program helping finance people in the social impact space. In any 1 week, there are 7,000 open positions. Okay? We have a lot of students interested. And we have a Berkeley Board Fellows program where we place students on nonprofit boards for a school year. Okay. So what have I learned in a nugget when I thought about this is one thing over my time here, which is the importance of a broad set of experiences of leadership. That you all came having looked at, at one next job, right? And that seemed like the most important thing in the world. And we produce MBAs who don't look ahead 10, 20, 30 years out, and what else do you want to do? And so we did a study here of 2,000 current U.S. leaders, corporate, public, nonprofit. And the extent to which they were working across these sectors, fully 50% of them do. And how did they get into it? Serendipity. Someone asked them, they found out about it, they fell into it. So I want to, with the panel today, give you some ideas of what other Haas alumni have done, either falling into it or any other way, and see if we spark any ideas of what you might like to do in the future. Okay, so that's the goal. So let me introduce our panelists, and then I'm just going to be real quick with your intros, and then with first question, you can add anything you want, okay? So Donna, Willis, Colson, you can figure out who Donna is on the stage, right? Okay.
I'm the easy one.
Donna's an evening weekend 94. Any other evening weekend 94s here? Yep, few, there you go, okay. Donna had an extensive 25-year finance experience, finance and investment career. And she started moving into leadership in the public sector, parks and recs, other city commissions, and she is now the mayor of Burlingame. Okay? Donna also serves on the Haas board and is our public service champion. So we'll hear about public service. Those of you who didn't raise your hands, she's going to be talking to you. Okay. Scott Kucirek?
Yeah, close enough, yes.
Close enough, okay. So Scott is an MBA 99. And he started his career as a naval aviator. He co-founded Zip Realty, was CEO until very recently at Ocho Candy, and now recently joined Hatchery Foods as the general manager of early stage brands. Scott is also a triathlete. He also serves on the board of an organization in Africa, and he's all about building teams and building culture. So he's our champion of corporate purpose and culture. Stan Little, MBA 1989. Yeah, all right. You brought your people. Okay.
We're still alive.
That's a major accomplishment there.
So good start. Good start. Oh, and they're a rowdy bunch, right? Is that what happens over the years? Okay.
We're drinking tonight, too.
All right, good. So Stan has a 38-year career, follow me for a minute, spanning broadband communications, financial services, and marketing. He's commercialized technologies, and he's led marketing efforts across private and nonprofit sectors. He was president of the SunTrust Foundation and chief experience officer of United Way Worldwide. I believe Stan serves on the board of every significant nonprofit institution in the southeastern United States. Okay? Yeah. And so Stan is our ambassador for nonprofit board service. Okay? So join me in welcoming them. And I'm going to start out with a question, and you can add anything you want to it about your experience. So each of you has been involved in multiple sectors, industries, and different roles. What have you gained from this breadth of experience, both to your career, professionally, and as a person? What's been the value add for you of the breadth of the experience you've had?
Go ahead, Stan.
You've been volunteering.
You're the senior.
Yeah, exactly. I think the same thing.
We did draw straws, and I am the old guy. Maybe I'll kick it off a little bit, and this may be controversial. The thing that I think I learned, gathered from all of the various experiences is to be patient, one. That advancement, change, impact, all those great words, doesn't happen overnight. The second thing is, as much as I hate to admit it, wasn't always the smartest guy in the room, that all of us, somebody said this and I adopted it, so if you said it, I'll give you credit later. All of us is smarter than any one of us. It said that early on in my career. And I think over the various career pivots I've made, I really hold to that. That for me, it didn't matter whether it was corporate, nonprofit setting or not. The problems fundamentally are all the same, or at the core they're the same. Mm-hmm. Markets, clients. We use technology, but technology is not that. Mm-hmm. But the way we attack them, the way we surmount these problems require a lot of diverse voices in the room, and you have to be patient for transformative change. And early on, I probably wasn't as patient as I am now, and that's helped me in my family life too. I'll be honest. I have two young adult daughters. Mm. I'm a girl dad, and listen, we have great relationships now because I learned to be patient early. So that's what I learned.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. So thank you all for coming today and taking time to visit our session. We really appreciate it. I think, you learn all the standard things when you're in business. You learn your finance, you have your accounting, you have how to market and everything. What I have learned is that in transitioning over to the public sector, is that the public sector desperately, desperately needs all of you in some capacity or another. The state of California's budget is $300 billion. You're all investors in that. You all pay into that budget. And you need to understand and learn what is going on with your tax dollars, what's going on in our state. We are, the Lieutenant Governor, who's also a Haas alumni, Eleni Kounalakis, likes to call us a nation state. And I would strongly recommend that if you have any opportunity in your career or in any space in your life, that you think about how you can volunteer and give back into your community, whether it's serving on a commission. I'm going to put a plug in here for running for office. We need so many more business savvy and technical people running for office in this country, and locally, from school boards to city councils, supervisors, the assembly, all the way up. If we don't get people into office that understand and know how to balance a budget, run a business and create efficiencies and economies, create culture, we are going to stall out as a city, a state, whatever you will. I've also learned in this work and transition that, frankly, this is the most fun I've ever had in my life, and it's the most rewarding work I've ever done. So please consider at some point, if you're thinking about a career change, something maybe you would never have thought of before.
Scott?
Thanks, and thanks to everyone for coming. I've had an eclectic career, and I think the thing that, when I've talked to other people, that sometimes holds them back is this idea of fear, or I'm not going to be experienced, or it's not going to be easy, or it's risky, and stuff like that. And I think in each of us, there's a little voice or something when we know it's off-settling, and whether we want to listen to it or not listen to it because it's inconvenient to listen to it because I have a nice home and I have a mortgage and kids. But sooner or later, and I'm known for this, a little morbid death talk, but I accept death as like a reality that's going to happen, and it's actually empowering. And so when you have that knowledge that every day is a gift and you can be here and do something and make a difference and spend your time the way you want, if you're fortunate, and everyone in this room is very fortunate, and just that you can come to this conference puts you in a very elusive class of people who have choices, whether you know that or not, then that will guide you to take the opportunity to reflect and say, is this really something that I want to keep doing, and why am I doing this, and how is this benefiting myself and what I want to do with my life and what I want to spend my time on? And then the other part I think is really important is about the idea about it's always about the people. Luckily, Jenny Chapman was one of my first professors here. She was acting dean for a little bit. I love her so much. And she convinced me, it didn't take much convincing, not to take a corporate finance class, which you have to take when you're getting an MBA. And I took more classes with her because we both agreed that no matter where you go, private sector, public sector, big company, small company, startup, there's people. And people are the thing that make a difference. And then how do you focus on creating an environment where you'd want to work there, where you feel empowered, and how is it transparent, and keeping open knowledge. So those are things that I think that are applicable anywhere. It's just coming in with an idea that every single person, whereas the person who's been there 2 days and their job is to clean the windows versus the CEO, they all have to work together, and they all have to be in an area of trust and understanding and value of everyone else's role, and that's how an organization moves forward. And so those are things that I think are applicable anywhere and things that make a difference in the end.
Great, thank you. So a tough question, and all of you can think about your own answer to this as I pose it to the panelists. So if you had to describe your career path as a book, a movie, or a song, what would you call it?
Yeah, you're going to me first?
Isn't it great I have to ask these questions and not answer them?
And the worst part is she gave it to me beforehand, and I still really don't
Okay,
have the
all
answer. So, I guess if I would have to make up my own title, which is don't let the naughty stuff that people do to you prevent you from advancing forward.
Could you sing that?
Yeah, I can dance it a little bit, but I really just think that it would have to be some sort of, but probably would be like a sport movie for me, where there's like the person who has this huge challenge, and and then they have to sort of overcome it. Mine was like giving up finance for 25 years. That was my big challenge, and then I had to overcome it. And I really had to think hard about what I wanted my life to be, my next part. The reason I gave up my career in finance was my husband took his company public, and the guys I worked for would not file the SEC filings for me to continue in my career. So I decided that I'd been making all the money for a long time, and it was time for my husband to make a little bit. So we worked things out, and I was trying to figure out what my next act was going to be. And my girlfriend called me and said, hey, we need someone to run for city council. I'm like, are you kidding me? There is no possible way. And my kids were like, ooh, there would be like signs with your name all around town. That's so bad. And then my husband said, or she could manage your college application process. And that got them on board right away. And so I literally, he sat down and said to me, you have finance background, you worked in affordable housing, you have overseen pension funds, and you have a lot of experience working with governmental agencies. He's like, you have also actually worked in the library at Cal when you were an undergrad, so you understand how a library works. And he started laying out all these things for me, and he's like, you're a park and rec commissioner, you coach softball, you understand the field situation. He's like, you have done everything in the city. Why wouldn't you take all those skills and like bring them to this great city that you love so much and just make it better? And he convinced me. He's obviously a good marketing guy, and I bought the product, ran a campaign, won, and I've been doing it now for a decade. So I guess it would just be like, you know, it's kind of that sports story. Like, you got your career, you think you got it going, then something happens that you couldn't prevent or was nothing to do with you, and you have to remake yourself as a new athlete. And now this is my new sport.
Yeah, so I have the same feeling. This question's been sitting around for 4 or 5 weeks. I'm like, oh my God. She sent us the question again. I'm like, I hope we don't ask that question. But then I started thinking about it, and then it's not actually, it's more of a poem like Robert Frost, everyone knows, The Path Less Taken.
Yeah.
And then I thought, wow, that really kind of sums it up, because so many times, when I became a naval aviator, I was a bioengineer here at Cal. Before that was like a thing. And now there's a massive building just down the block. But I just knew myself one day I wanted to fly, and I couldn't afford to do so. So I just showed up to the recruiting office in downtown Oakland, and I picked, and each floor there was one branch of the service. You had Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. And I was thinking, well, if you're going to fly, it's hardest to land on a ship. So Bink, Navy. It was a real deep thought process. Very, charity. But, and the first time I ever flew was when I was on a plane sent to boot camp. So each kind of thing that happened, getting an MBA, starting a real estate company, starting a chocolate company, people who know me know this, I don't even like chocolate. It just was something that I can't explain. It was just something that seemed like the right thing to do. And even though it made no sense on paper, it made sense to me. And I was lucky to have a supportive network of people who would help me. That's the thing I got from Haas right out of the gate that was just amazing to me, was I was coming out of the Navy, and so there wasn't like getting an MBA. Now I could be a better aviator with my MBA. Like, there's no going back. That's kind of the deal. But when you got here, everyone, well, it's a .com era, but everyone here was supportive of the craziest ideas. You weren't seen as abnormal. You found your tribe of people like, well, why wouldn't you go do that? Let's talk about how we can actually help you do that. So you have that kind of support. You have a supportive family that doesn't say, oh, it's not safe. What are you doing? You're going to ruin your career. You're not going to get a pension. I mean, I was 9 years in the military, and people were like, only 11 more to go and you get a pension. I was thinking, I can do a lot in 11 years, and that's not going to be this. So I think in that kind of journey, then you're following your thing. And it doesn't always end up in the right direction, but at least you did it. Like, I just think there's a more happiness or self-fulfillment in the idea that you at least tried it. And if you fail, it's okay. I mean, if you can recover, it's perfect. And then most of us in this room have the opportunity to fail. So, that's it.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Okay. We're going to skip me and just go to the next question. I, like you, underachieved on this question. I didn't give it as much thought until last night. I gave it some thought last night. You remember that movie?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
No, that's not it.
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah. I thought if I allowed a pregnant pause, you would feel. Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, yes.
You remember Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes.
So I like the title in connection with my career path, because I've always been sort of, zigging and zagging a little, but tacking towards, kind of a North Star, but, it's not straight. But using the concept of I'm in pursuit of something, happiness or fulfillment, but something of that, kind of that nature. And then when you sort of wrap the backdrop of the movie around it, since this is not being recorded and this is a small group, and
it's being recorded.
Yes.
Well,
it's just for internal use.
Yeah, so I'll out myself. Early on, and I can't say that I'm 100% over this, But early on in my career, I had a big imposter syndrome from the humble beginnings of you know, a young black man out of South Carolina trying to figure out, you know, can he be the first in college and all that sort of thing, and coming out to this part of the world and trying to be an engineer, all those things. And so it was always kind of, you know, in pursuit, but doubtful and not sure, you know, I fully belonged, and so I've got to sort of overachieve a little bit. And so that was a bit of the backdrop of that movie, you know. And so, like, if you show up at an office and, you know, you don't have a suit, you better have, you remember the guy didn't have pants and that sort of thing? You got to go watch the movie if you haven't. But I overachieved a little here because I also thought about a song.
Oh,
I also
you
thought
did
about
too?
a song. I did too, because I felt guilty that I didn't think about this. You know that song, Cats in the Cradle?
Yeah, I love that song. Yeah,
Oh, God.
it's one of my favorite songs.
I heard that like 2 days ago. And it reminded me, now I know the song and like, it reminded me of not only in my career was I, you know, in pursuit of something, but listen, I'm a head of a household, and you know, my wife went to Bolt. She reminds me, you're not the only one.
I'm sure she does.
With a big old degree from Berkeley, buddy, and so you got to sort of take a household along with you. And did I say I was a girl dad? I said that already. Yeah. And the last thing I wanted was, you know, to have that song be my song. Yeah. Like, I grew up just like you, Dad. I didn't have time for you, you know, just like you didn't have time for me. So yeah, in pursuit of happiness, but, you know, kind of anti-Cats in the Cradle.
Wow.
If that's a thing.
An anti-song.
And could you sing that for us?
Yeah. Cats in the cradle with a silver spoon.
There you go.
Whoa, there you
I
go.
know your skills.
Singing is not.
Okay, so I'm suspecting that a number of people in this room are sitting here saying, you know, maybe it's time for me to switch. I don't know. But how do you know when it's time to pivot? How do you really know? Were there any markers for you? I know you talked about something very specific in your life, but for other, you know, you've made a number of different changes. Was there anything or any set of things that said to you, oops, it's time to leave what I'm doing and find something else?
I've done probably a lot of that, and I think it's interesting in both times. I like what you're saying too, because I always thought about that song too, and that was one of the main motivations why I left the Navy. Even though I was doing very well, I just saw the future was not having a relationship with your family. I mean, they just could not be cohabitate in a way that was what I rather work at McDonald's and see my family than vice versa. And that's not everyone's dream, but that was my dream. But you know, when you start a company, you build it up, and there's hundreds of people, and I was fortunate to have great people. Like the first time was Zip Realty, and then we brought in a CEO, which we were told that was going to happen by Benchmark Capital. When they funded us, we were only 30-something. They said, if this thing goes well, we're going to have to bring in adult supervision. And, and I appreciate them being forthright about that, because it set expectations. But the new person came in, and he had a different view on culture than we did. I mean, Jennifer Chapman wrote a case study about the culture we built at Zip Realty, which was one of the first case studies at Haas. And so internally, I was battling that for years, like trying to preserve what was there. And then one day, after I was opening new markets and on a plane every Sunday night, going to Miami, then to Houston, to Las Vegas, and coming back, trying to build like the new version of Zip Realty. One day I was sitting there just frustrated about what the CEO was doing, and my wife says, you know what? And she's a psychologist and genius, way smarter than me. She goes, you're just in love with a company that doesn't exist anymore. And I was like, wow. It just was like a lightning rod, just clarity, like those moments of like, I was like, holy Toledo. It just kind of encapsulated everything that I knew, but I didn't want to admit, because I was like fighting this fight that was already over. And within 4 months, I resigned. Yeah. And then recently at Ocho County, I've been there 13 years, took it from 2 people. We had over $100 million in sales in lifetime of our company, probably 1 billion pieces of candy. once again, I've been for 2 years talking to my mentor and like, I don't know, I should be happy, the situation's okay, but something's not right. I don't know what it is. But, job's not too tough. My team knows what they're doing. We've worked well. And at that time, too, and it's like, and if I leave, what happens to the company? And then it could fall apart. And then all that money, our own personal money is gone, and all this stuff, all this heavy stuff. Like, I personally had friends invest in the company. I was very close with our shareholders. One day, my wife's like, look, I've been saying a lot of this to a lot of other people, and now I'm going to say it to you. Because she's a psychologist. She goes, why is everyone else's happiness more important than yours? And it was like that second moment where I was like, whoa. Right, I'm trying to tell myself I'm happy, but I'm not really happy. And so within 60 days, I was like, that's it, I'm out of here. So not everyone can have my wife as their life confidence coach
As a consultant to everyone.
but all I'm saying is like,
I'm gonna give her my number.
There's like a feeling in there that and then as soon as like something can verbalize it, like bring it out in the open, out from the part you didn't want to acknowledge, it's very scary, but then it starts becoming liberating because then you're leaving the shackles off. And I remember I knew it was the right decision when every other person I knew in my family was overjoyed that I left. And that people I knew who were other CEOs and founders who were friends of mine are like, I'm so jealous. How did you get out of the cage? And I said, oh, you always have the key with you. You just didn't know that.
Just didn't know you could open
I just had to open the door. So anyways, that really helped me do this stuff. And just yesterday, I was talking to some people like, damn, you're really excited about your new job. I haven't been that excited about a job in 7 years.
That's great.
That's great. Thank you. Stan, you've
To
done
me,
a lot of changes, too.
I've done a lot of changes. I feel like I've had maybe 3 core careers. One of the things that's sort of fundamental early for me, so I didn't sort of embellish on your bio. So I was an engineer by training, at 2 degrees in electrical engineering, and came to Silicon Valley, went straight to Hewlett-Packard, Page Mill Road, in the bowels of HP R&D, after slugging it through, Duke Engineering and Purdue Engineering, and then I became an engineer, and I was like, uh-oh. This ain't exactly how I thought this was going to be. And I've devoted so much. I could have been drinking at the frat parties, in the library on Friday nights for this. HP is a great company, but I'm just saying, the engineering experience. And it took me a while to, I wasn't there long. I was there like 3 years. So that episode of changing a career early on that I invested so much academic and credentialing to be good at and, climb into, HP was a premier company. I kind of had to decide to do that quickly because I convinced myself, and I still hold true to this. If you have those, reservations like what Scott's talking about, this doesn't get better with age. It just, I felt like you don't realize, but your personality is kind of changing. Maybe the people around you that love you most are being a little too kind and allowing you to be the jerk that you become. But you're killing them softly and you don't realize it and that sort of thing. And I was in a young marriage and that sort of thing. Still the same marriage, by the way, just letting you know.
That's good.
It was a young marriage. And so for me, if you had to say, how do you know when it's time to pivot? Then it just didn't feel right anymore. Yeah. And of course, I had, I had parents and everybody saying, "You're thinking about doing what? Giving up such a great job," that sort of thing. So later in my career, I've had those episodes again, and what I think is the thread that binds is, I had to get to a point of saying the first one, which led me to Haas, and which kicked off my second act probably at that time, but it was early. Was a winner. But it was by chance. It was by gut. It was by and I didn't want to live not only my life, but, affect all the lives around me by, luck is my strategy, or I couldn't, or hope or something. So we started in our family, writing down like what do we stand for? Like, what are our personal and family principles? And so I kind of do that. And it's not a long list. I'm not going to tell you what they are. Get your own. But it's not a long list. But they are things like, I said this to somebody at lunch. I said, I want to be the husband of one wife. Now, this may be a second marriage for you or a third marriage, but to me, fundamentally, that was so important to me that I made career trade-offs where that would have put that in jeopardy. And there are other things like that. So when the signs in the career or in the boardroom, the executive meeting, start to violate or put at risk a few of the 4 or 5 things I have on my personal and professional list. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to do things with integrity, that sort of thing. So one day I find myself I'm global executive for marketing, sales, and service at a technology company in the East Coast. And one day we got to make some tough decisions. And we're in this really intense meeting, and somebody says, "But is that legal?" I don't even remember what it was. That was the moment I knew.
Yeah, it's time.
Did we have to ask? Did we have to ask? Can we do that legally? Because not going to jail is on my list. Even for a minute. So I would offer that your personal Geiger counter about, we're in trouble or danger, Will Robinson comes up. You got to prepare for that in advance, because ultimately I just think that the environment or the scenarios show up. And in my community, we say, be ready so you don't have to get ready. Mm-hmm. So if you're not ready, and those, can we do this legally? And those things start to show up. And if you don't already say, well, that's past the red line, and I'm going to put a great smile on my face during the conversation, but, my mind is on the resume right now or something. If you're not there, then I think that you stay too long. Mm-hmm. And you're not in it. Your best self is not showing up, in the environment or at home, et cetera. So I'd say get to a point where you can articulate, for me in my house, these are the things that are principles for us, and I don't care how much money somebody throws at me, prestige or whatever, this is a line we're not even getting close to.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Very good.
That's great.
Yes.
So I'm really struck by how many times what was mentioned is relationships. Mm-hmm. Your wife, your kids, being there, for the people you care about. We're talking about business and switching careers, but relationship has come up over and over already. So I have another question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause, and Kevin, if you could, we'll take a couple questions from you, and then we're going to break out into groups.
Yeah, okay.
Because, we've got a lot of you, we've got few people up here, so hopefully you're ready for a little experiment. The idea is that each of these people have done multiple things, as you hear, right? But as we started, Donna has this rich, deep experience in public service with a background in corporate, finance. Are you interested in public service? And if you're not, I'm telling you right now, she's going to come get you. Okay?
You will be, I promise.
And then Scott with the corporate culture, right? And team building, whether it's in athletics or corporation, if you're interested in that. And Stan, particularly with the nonprofit boards, with his deep experience. We're going to break out in 3 different sections so you can have a more intimate conversation. Okay? That means you're going to have to pick up, not right now, but you're going to pick up your chairs and move them, but I figure you're all healthy, able people, okay? So a couple questions from you, and then we'll move into that. Anyone? The mic is coming to you, just a minute.
Yeah, thanks for all the insights, appreciate it. So one question is, so it's more, I guess, it's not such a strategic question, more a tactical question about how you go about doing it, right? Because, like, like in the movies, right? If you're an action guy, that's what you get typecast as. Nobody says, okay, do you want to do a rom-com? No. So I'm a tech CTO, and that's what I get pulled into. So it's like you can't get out of that hamster wheel. So people have talked about serendipity, like, oh, my friend called me and said run for city council. I don't have such friends.
Well, you do now.
Me, you.
So it's a more tactical question on how do you go about doing that, or is CISL something that we can look at as a resource to help you navigate through this, saying, yeah, I'm okay with a 50% cut in my pay as long as what I do becomes more meaningful.
So I think there's two ways to get there. So the way I did it, I think, is in addition to being an entrepreneur and working in business and finance, I had a side hustle, and that was I was a philanthropreneur. And I took my time and my money, and I invested it into philanthropy that was important to me. So one of the boards I sit on, in addition, and I have for 25 years, is the Filoli Estate and Garden. You maybe saw President Xi and President Biden there. And I took over in 2015, and we made a dramatic course correction on that organization to really envision what a public garden should be, and super inclusive, and making sure that it wasn't what I call the WOWs, the wealthy old white women dominating it, and that we are open to all cultures, all ages, all people, all genders. And I was able to do that because I was working in my regular career, but then I had this agreement with my partners that this was really important to me. So I was doing this along the way. So when I resigned, I actually took over as president of that. So I had kind of created that. So that's sort of one way. And the other way is just to get so darn frustrated, you quit. I mean, you just sort of say, I literally remember driving up to my office and thinking, my nanny is living my life. And I hate it. I hate every minute of it. She's taking my kids to all the fun places, and I'm like spending 200 days on the road. So I got home, I was crying. My husband's like, is everything okay? Because I didn't have your wife. and I'm like, I hate my job. I hate my life right now. And he's like, with me? And I'm like, no, I love the part with you. I just hate the part with everything else. And luckily there was a forced situation when he took the company public, but it really I didn't look back 1 minute. I was so relieved and so happy because when I started working, I was probably one of only a few moms that worked in my area, and it was brutal. Like, the PTA moms would say things like, well, if you really loved your children, you'd stay home. And I was like, really? That's so not nice. And really not very nice. Now I'm the mayor. So, that's how it kind of goes. Yeah, no, you're not going to get on the planning commission, honey. You were mean years ago. So you just, you kind of got to go with your vibe a little bit. And I was like, this is, okay, this is okay. So I just sort of, completely pivoted and went in a totally different direction. So I think I had kind of two great paths going, one with my philanthropy and then the other with really my career. My philanthropy sustained me through my career change and kept me fulfilled and honored while I sorted out the rest of the world.
And could I jump in here for a minute?
Please.
Okay. Sir, you also said, could CISL do anything for you? I believe I heard.
Yes.
The answer is yes. My email is Nora Silver, just like it sounds, Nora Silver, like the color, at berkeley.edu. We are creating, and I'll tell you in a minute, some new programming for alumni. So I would be happy to talk to you personally and see how we could help. Let me generalize the question also, because sometimes it's not a leave this and go to this, although that's been my history as well, so I understand that well. But sometimes it's also keep here and explore these other things simultaneously until you figure out what it is. Okay. Yeah. One other question? Anybody?
I had a response there, and I'll take it in the nature of which you gave it. You said it's not strategic, man. This is like, and you're in technology, okay? I'd say this is that kind of tough love-ish answer, which you got to get on it. Is what you got to do. At some point, if you're feeling as though where I am is not where I want to be. Good looks better over here, whatever that is. I'd say do what you would do if you were designing something like a new system or a new, you know the problem you're in, you know the current situation. And if you can, put dimensions around what the better state would look like, the work is what's the strategy to get there. But defining what the better state is, I find, is harder than you might imagine, because it could be as big as the ocean or Grand Canyon. And so dimensioning that concise enough, I'm not going to say small enough, but concise enough so that you could say to yourself in a few bullets, where I want to be in the next 5 years, like it has to have all those parameters around it, just like business school will teach us. Once you get that, I think it's becomes so liberating because it gets you to a point of saying what you won't do. Like, this is where I'm headed now, and it feels and looks like this. There was a point in my career where I could say, I want to be VP of sales. I want a house that's on both a golf course and a lake at the same time. Didn't know how that would work. I didn't quite know how that would work. I mean, I was like, I could list those 5 things. And, well, I only got 3 of them. Maybe I should have come up with 7 things. I could have got there all 5. But that's the work, I would say. There's no magic to the how, but there's magic in the mechanics of it. And the first thing is, can you precisely say what good looks like or better looks like in a few dimensions? You already know where you are, and the strategy could be a zig or zag or a straight line. That's the circumstances then. What my network is. How many of you remember the 101% giving? Yeah, only our class remembers that. Yeah. The rest of you didn't give, right? So in our graduating class, we had this campaign where the graduating students were going to give 1% of their first year's salary so you could sit in this building, kind of thing, right? And I remember explicitly saying, why don't I take 1% of my salary and invest it in me every year? Now, at some point, my salary got kind of big, and I was like, no, that's too much money. But conceptually, instead of waiting for the company to, nominate me for some program or something like that, I just started setting aside my own money and taking a week off of vacation, and I'm going to the Harvard School for governance, or I'm going to, and that's what I mean by the tactical. It's hard. But you got to get. Time's not your friend.
Yeah. Tough love. All
it's
right.
The little tough love.
Good.
Yeah.
Another question from you, sir.
Thank you. Is it on? Yeah, it's
Yes.
on. Thank you. I have a question, kind of a tactical question. Most of us in this room are actually pretty privileged, and when we make these kinds of choices, we have some backup. We have some financial means where we can choose what is that next step, right? But for those people that are in jobs in which they're not happy, but don't have the means, what might you suggest? What are the things that they might have to think about as part of making that switch?
I think you're talking about my children. And no. I would say, for years, I didn't make a lot of money. I think all of us, when we're starting out, don't make a lot of money and have to make, career changes. I love the idea of investing 1% in yourself, because if you have a savings account set up for yourself and and I'm a financial planner type person, I think, encouraging your children or people you work with in the government, not a lot of people make a ton of money in my role, and I really encourage them, always invest in your pension, always invest in yourself. That way, when the day comes that you do want to make a change, you have invested and you have saved enough money to be able to sort of make that transition. That's my financial advisor answer, and the answer I give my kids all the time, too. It's hard. Like, I went to Haas. I'll be honest, I got into a lot of schools. I went to Haas because my company agreed to pay for it. and I couldn't afford to go anywhere else. So I came here, and I loved it. But I think that you have to make, I tell my kids all the time, you have to make practical decisions around the economics that you actually have in life. And so I got into Yale. I got into a bunch of really great East Coast schools. I had no money to go there. So when the company said, we'll pay for you to go to Haas, that's why I'm an evening weekend MBA program. I worked full time for 3 years while I went to Haas. And I just think that sometimes you have to just face the reality of what you're in. And if you think you're miserable, start planning. And that way in 3 or 4 months, you have enough to pay your rent for a little while, and you can make the change.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in the Navy, it's not the most highly compensated profession coming out as an undergrad, and I paid for my own college, so I had some student debt there. Luckily, I had scholarships from what now turned into the grants that turned into UC Merced. I'm from Merced, so and not many people from that area went to college. But I just knew that while I was in the Navy, I knew that wasn't where I was going to be. But I didn't have a lot of money. And I got into Haas, and it's like, damn, how are we going to pay for this, right? I mean, it was really tricky. Now, luckily, tuition back then was a little lower than it is now.
Yeah,
At that time, if you're a state resident, it was, relatively reasonable, but like $20,000 or $30,000. We didn't have that in savings. My wife and I, and she's a psychologist, not high-paying profession. So we just did what she said. For a couple years before I got in, we just started buckling down. I mean, I'm not proud of this, but one time my grandma came by, and we never turned the heat on in our house. And, she said she was never coming back. So that was probably like a bridge too far there. But anyways, but, we just started doing it and saying, I'm just going to bet on, I have to go and do this because that's the only way to invest in myself and get this MBA, and hopefully something will come out of it. So, and I've been lucky to meet a lot of people doing startups, and many of them are not people who have money and resources, but God, some people are so resourceful and so driven, and they're working 2 jobs, and they're driving an Uber around because they're just gotta do their thing, and it takes longer. It's taking them longer to get stuff, but they start building some traction, and then it self-fulfills. You get more rewarded there, and then you get people interested, and then you can break through. But it's harder, but I agree with you. You have to plan it out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
All right. We're going to pause. We're going to break out into 3 groups. Just a reminder, Scott's going to talk about culture and team building. Donna's going to talk about public service
and nonprofit.
And Stan's going to talk about board service. Okay, corporate and board service. Corporate jobs and board service, because we can do more than one thing at a time. I just want to remind you that somebody in a job they're not happy, lots of people do lots of other things to supplement their primary jobs too. So, Stan, could I ask you to go toward the open spot in the back? And anyone who wants to join Stan, let's stand up.
We're going to have kind of a standing meeting back there?
We're going to have we can bring chairs.
Okay.
Bring your chair.
Can do that.
Stand there.
I'll be there.
Donna, could you go over here?
Sure.
And Scott, could you go in
between? If you come to my
there?
section, I'm paying you because I'm an elected official. I'm going to buy you off.
Where do you want me to go?
Over there.
Okay, great.
Thanks.